So next up we have Familiar Knight. This card is actually really cool because this is the only card in the deck that lets you summon out another monster from this deck. So I'm going to go ahead and just get into it. Familiar Knight, when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, each player can summon a level 4 monster from their hand. So what is this card used for? Yes, I do have level 4s, but there's a specific level 4 monster that does need to be summoned by this effect, and that is Rare Metal Dragon. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. It's a level 4, 2400 attack points, so Familiar Knight does need to get out Rare Metal, or you could use Rare Metal for the tribute for the ritual. That's why I have the ritual in here. Or you could just discard it for a dead card with Twin Twisters, or anything of that matter. So this card's pretty much a dead card unless you get off with Familiar Knight. If you don't, then oopsie. Next is Kaiser Seahorse. We all know what Kaiser Seahorse does. You can treat it as 2 tributes for a light monster, obviously for Blue Eyes. Next up, we have Lord of D. Dragon-type monsters on the field cannot be targeted by card effects. So this card is really good, especially helping out the Dragon-type archetype. This card was really, really good for Dragon Rulers. I'm surprised nobody played this in Dragon Rulers. But we got Flute of Summoning Dragon as well. We can special summon up to 2 dragon types from our hand if we have Lord of D on the field. Next we have the Obelisk. We have the new Obelisk, just because, I know he uses Obelisk a lot in the anime. I know Yugi takes Obelisk and, obviously does not keep, or, he takes Obelisk, making Kaiba no longer have any god cards, but, Obelisk is a fan favorite for Kaiba people, so, Now we got Pete the Dark Clown. This card is really, really awesome when it comes to Kaiba decks, just because it's an easy... It reminds me a whole lot of Destiny Hero Malicious and Stygian Security. When Stygian Security is destroyed by battle, or just I think when it's just destroyed in general, then you can special summon a level 1 Fiend type monster, which would be another Stygian Security. Malicious, you can banish Malicious from your graveyard to special summon another Malicious. So this is basically a combined card of the two. Next, Rare Metal Dragon. I've already explained what that does. Spear Dragon. Kaiba does use this card a lot. I'm not sure if he uses this. I know for sure Jack Atlas does in the games, in the World Championship games. But it's a piercing card, basically. However, if it attacks, it changes to defense mode. Of course, cards with this effect usually have 0 defense points. Next, we have Wing Catapults, Dragon Head, and Metal Tank, and have those for the fusions. And plus, if I dead draw them, I can set them or summon them or do whatever I want with them. Plus, again, I could use them for the Ritual Summon. So, again, Ritual Summon, this card, basic attack and whatnot. However, I contribute it to special summon a Blue Eyes from my hand or deck. However, it cannot attack that turn. So, again, perfectly fine, unless I've already fusion summoned with it. Then, obviously, I won't be able to summon it because it would be in my graveyard. However, Desferal Imp would let me shuffle that back in. So, cost down, yay! Again, familiar card. Both decks actually share this card, which is pretty cool. So, let's say I already have a Pete on the field and I just have a dead card in hand. We're just going to say I have Familiar Knight. So I discard Familiar Knight, and then Blue Eyes in my hand becomes a level 6. Therefore, I contribute my Pete for it. So that's really, really cool. And then when Pete sends the graveyard, I can just bust down another. So, again, really cool. Dark Core, discard a card, then target one face-up monster on the field. Banish that monster. So that is a really cool effect, especially since it's a discard card and not a pay life point card. I know Soul Taker, you pay it's... let me think here. Soul Taker is you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. However, your opponent will gain 1,000 life points. Soul Taker, yeah. So next up we have Defusion. Obviously, what does Defusion do? It defuses your monsters. Since I don't have Dragon's Mirror in this deck, then I still would have the fusion materials in this deck, especially for Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. So Defusion would easily let me get out those monsters. However, if I do Desferal Imp one of the fusion materials, then I will not be able to get Defusion out on the field. Next, enemy controller, I can use, I contribute one of my monsters, such as Pete, to bust out another Pete, to take control of one of their monsters, and then I contribute that monster. So that's really cool. However, I could also just change one of the battle positions of their monster when they attack, or if I attack it. So next is Megamorph. This card is really, really cool. If your life points are lower than your opponent's, which, trust me, they will be at some point, then the equipped monster's attack points are doubled. However, if your life points are higher, then the equipped monster's life points are halved. So I go to text. Anyway, so if your opponent, has a monster with high attack points and they have more life points, and you have more life points, then you can Megamorph their monster, and then that monster's attack points will be halved. So you can play this card really smart and whatnot. So yeah, Megamorph is a really strategic card. I'm surprised it's not used more, especially in aromas, because man, aromas. Next is Nobleman of the Crossout. You can destroy one face-down monster your opponent controls, banish it, and if it was a flip monster, both players reveal their main deck and then banish all cards with the same name. So back when flip monsters were really, really popular with like Man-Eater Bug, then this card would obviously be the counter card to that and whatnot, but yeah. So next we have Polymerization. I don't know why I put Polymerization here. I really don't. I have no fusion monsters in this deck whatsoever. So next we have a Soul Release. Target up to 5 cards in any graveyard, banish them. You could banish your own cards. I don't know why you would, though. You could also banish your opponent's cards, which are really, really, really useful, especially in certain decks that require the graveyard, such as Infernoids and whatnot. So Soul Release does deal damage to those monsters, to some decks. It does put a dent in some decks, especially if you carry up to 3 copies, because then that's 15 cards of their deck banished, and that's really, really cool. So next we have Flute of Summoning Dragon. I've already gone over this. Twin Twisters. Why this over Mystical Space Typhoon? Because it is better! You can discard a card, destroy up to 2 spell or trap cards on the field. This card is really used a lot in artifacts, just because you can pop your own cards. But yeah, so White Dragon Ritual summons out my Paladin of White Dragon. Again, if I dead draw a rare Metal Dragon, I could use it for the ritual. Next, we have Call of the Haunted, just because if I discard anything for any other card effect, such as Dark Core or Twin Twisters, or maybe they're just sent to the graveyard in general, then I could Blue Eyes White Dragon that monster. Cloning, when your opponent normal or flip summons a monster that has a level, so Xyz, but it says normal or flip summon, so they can't normal or flip summon. Actually, they could flip summon an Xyz if I book a Moon it, or if they book a Moon, or something like that. Anyway, that has a level. Target that face-up monster, okay. Special summon a clone token with the same original type, attribute level, attack, and defense points as that target. So this card is really, really useful, especially against some certain decks that just are powerhouses. And then you could obviously get this card out as well. What would be really cool, though, is if this card did not target, and if it just copied that monster's effect as well. So if your opponent, if Towers wasn't banned, but if your opponent got Quill for Towers out, and then you played Cloning, then that would be really, really cool, because then you got your own freaking Towers on the field. Now, Towers and Cloning could just kill each other, but hey. So now I have Dark Crush Virus, tribute 1 Dark Monster with 1,000 attack points or less, which would be my Peton. Familiar Knight, no. So really it would just only be my Peton, because I don't have any others, which is sad. So tribute Peton, basically. Then your opponent takes no damage for the rest of the turn. However, destroy all monsters from their deck, hand, and whatnot that has 1,500 or more attack points. So, Rain Destruction, we all know what that does. This card really does set up the stage for Megamorph, or vice versa. You can Megamorph and then go into Ring of Destruction, or whatever. However, you take the damage first. They change they nerf the effect to you take the damage first, and then your opponent does. So if you take the damage first and you lose, then your opponent would still live. They wouldn't take any damage. So again, you need to be smart when you play this card. Next is Virus Cannon. Tribute any number of non-token monsters, then for each one tributed, your opponent sends 1 spell card from their deck to their hand. So this card is really cool. You can combo this with Peton. You can tribute Peton to banish itself and summon another Peton, so then your opponent can send a spell card. However, this card, not a whole lot of people use a whole lot of good spell cards other than like Regeki, Dark Hole, Upstart, stuff like that. Because, the deck that uses spell cards is only as good as the spell cards. So, if I run a Dark Hole in a deck that can't be, or in a monster deck that can't be destroyed, actually, no, that would be a good combo. But anyway, point made, Virus Cannon is pretty good. So I don't really want to go into these a whole lot. I do want to say, though, that that all of the combination cards, like the VW or stuff like that, they cannot be affected, or they cannot be fusion summoned by polymerization. So why do I have 2 polys for only 1 fusion monster? Because I could easily use the other as a dead card to discard, or just anything if my opponent plays Dark Ward Dealings, or Exchange, or anything like that. I could give them my poly. So, or I could just give up my poly. One or the other. And plus, if I end up needing my poly, again, Desferal Imp, this card is really useful in this deck, although you only get 1 shot at it. So you need to be sure how exactly you use your Desferal Imp, especially when it comes to your fusion monsters and whatever else you use it for. So again, these fusion monsters can only be summoned out by what's it called? By their effects. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. This is Gaming Jake logging out. Peace.
Don't play that.